Ladies and gentlemen, friends from around the world today, I stand before you not as an actress, not as a global ambassador, but as a human being, one who is shaken, heartbroken, and filled with sorrow. News has just confirmed that the death toll from the tragic Air India plane crash has risen to 270 souls. 270 dreams, voices, families, stories, gone in a matter of moments. When something like this happens, it doesn't just make headlines. It makes history, it touches hearts, it shifts nations, and it demands that we pause. In our busy, forward, moving lives, we must take a moment to reflect, to mourn, and to remember those we've lost. These were not just numbers. These were mothers, fathers, daughters, sons, lovers, teachers, travelers, and dreamers, and their stories deserved more time. I think of the families right now, waiting by phones that won't ring. I think of children waiting for parents who will never walk through that door again. I think of the parents who dropped their kids off at the airport, not realizing it was the last time they'd ever see them. My heart breaks for every single one of them. This is not just a national tragedy, it is a human one. And in times like this, it doesn't matter what country you're from, what language you speak, or what religion you practice. Grief speaks a universal language, and so does compassion. We need answers, we need accountability, but before that, we need empathy. We must rally around these families not just today, not just this week, but in the weeks, the months, and the years to come. Because healing doesn't happen in a news cycle. Healing happens when humanity refuses to forget. I also want to say this: let us never normalize tragedy. Let us not scroll past devastation. Behind every 270 dead, headline is a face, a voice, a life. Let's honor them by remembering their humanity, not just their numbers. To the rescue teams, the first responders, the medical staff, thank you. You ran toward the fire when others ran away. And to the investigators, we plead, leave no question unanswered. These families deserve peace, and finally, to the victims, though your lives were cut short, your legacy lives on. We speak your names, we feel your absence, and we will not let your memory fade into silence. Let this moment change us. Let it wake us up. Let it remind us to hug tighter, forgive faster, and never take one single good bye for granted. In moments of great tragedy, it's easy for the world to reduce human lives into statistics. News outlets flash headlines that say 270 dead, and social media moves on to the next trending topic. But behind every number, there is a name. Behind every digit is a story, a journey, and a heartbeat that once loved, laughed, struggled, and dreamed. The Air India plane crash, which claimed 270 lives, is not just a tragedy in the logistical sense. It is a heartbreak on a deeply human level. Each of those passengers was someone's everything. They had plans for tomorrow, they had people waiting for them, and they had unfinished dreams that were cruelly interrupted. This speech calls us to remember that the toll isn't just a numerical increase, it is an expanding circle of loss. Every person on that flight leaves behind parents who now have empty rooms, children who don't understand why their mother or father isn't coming home, and communities forever marked by their absence. There are suitcases that will never be unpacked, airport pickup signs that will never be seen, text messages that will remain unread. When we forget the human beings behind the numbers, we fail to grasp the true weight of what has been lost. It's easy to become desensitized in a world filled with breaking news and constant tragedy, but true empathy means resisting that numbness. It means sitting in the discomfort of knowing that lives have been stolen too soon and too violently. It means honoring those who died not with silence, but with remembrance. When we think of them, we must imagine their faces, their laughter, their struggles, their triumphs, and their hopes. We must remember that each of those 270 souls had a unique fingerprint in this world, an impact, however big or small, that can never be replaced. By humanizing the tragedy, the speech reminds us that grief should never be minimized. These were people who mattered. They were more than passengers. They were poets, professionals, parents, pioneers, and their stories don't end with the crash. Their memory lives on through those who loved them and through a collective consciousness that refuses to let them fade into statistics. We owe it to them to speak their names, to tell their stories, and to let their lives inspire compassion in our own. In doing so, we bring light to even the darkest corners of tragedy, refusing to let loss become just another headline. Grief is a language that doesn't need translation. When a tragedy like the Air India plane crash occurs, claiming the lives of 270 people, it doesn't just affect one country or one community. It shakes the human spirit across the world. In times like these, it becomes painfully clear that suffering knows no boundaries. The pain that one mother in Delhi feels is not different from the sorrow of a friend in Toronto, a relative in London, or a loved one in Dubai. We may speak different tongues, wear different clothes, and come from different walks of life, but loss levels us all. It reminds us that, at our core, we are all human, and our hearts beat in the same rhythm when they break. The speech powerfully emphasizes the importance of global empathy. We cannot look at this as an isolated event that happened somewhere else, to someone else. When a plane falls from the sky, it crashes into the hearts of all who still believe in kindness, in safety, and in the fragile beauty of life. And while we cannot undo the damage, we can soften the blow through the power of compassion. Our tears may fall in different time zones, but when they fall together, they become a river of shared humanity. Too often, the world moves on quickly, but empathy demands that we linger. It asks us to carry a piece of that pain, even if we didn't personally lose someone, simply because someone else did. That's what it means to be part of the human family. We don't wait for a tragedy to land at our own doorstep before we care. We care because we understand that no one is immune to loss, and we know that tomorrow it could be any of us holding a photograph instead of a hand. In her speech, Priyanka Chopra's tone echoes a call to keep our hearts open, even when it's easier to shut them. This global grief should be a reminder of our collective strength. When we unite in mourning, we also unite in hope. We promise to the families left behind that their loved ones mattered, not just to them, but to all of us. We promise that their lives, however abruptly ended, sparked a moment of connection that crossed oceans and borders. And maybe that's the greatest tribute we can offer, to let this tragedy not just break our hearts, but also bind them together in shared sorrow and unwavering support. When tragedy strikes, the world often focuses on the immediate devastation. The headlines, the footage, the rising numbers. But once the cameras leave and the news cycle moves on, the real battle begins for the families left behind. The pain doesn't end when the final body is identified or the wreckage is cleared. For those who lost loved ones in the Air India crash, their grief is only beginning. Every day that follows is a reminder of the absence that now fills their lives. There's an empty seat at the dinner table, an untouched room filled with memories, and a silence that screams where once there was laughter and conversation. These families are not just dealing with loss, they're dealing with trauma. Many of them didn't get to say goodbye. Some didn't even get to see the bodies of their loved ones. There's a kind of pain that words can't describe, and it lingers long after public attention fades. That is why the speech insists on the importance of ongoing support. Compassion should not be temporary. These families deserve not just sympathy in the moment, but also lasting solidarity in the days, months, and years that follow. It's not just about emotional healing. It's also about practical realities. Children may now be orphaned. Spouses might suddenly become single parents. Parents who lost their only child are now left with questions that may never be answered. These individuals are thrust into new lives they never asked for, trying to function in a world that suddenly feels unrecognizable. In moments like these, community matters. Whether it's a kind word, a supportive hand, or simply showing up when no one else does, the people around them can make a difference that ripples outward. The power of remembrance also plays a critical role in this healing. These families don't want their loved ones to become forgotten faces in an old news article. They want their stories told, their memories honored. To show true support means we keep speaking those names. We celebrate the lives they lived and acknowledge the hole they've left behind. In doing so, we tell these families, you are not alone, your pain matters, and we are here with you. Ultimately, healing after such a tragedy requires more than time. It requires presence. Not just in grand gestures, but in small, consistent ways. The strength of a society is seen in how it treats its wounded. And in choosing not to look away, we choose to carry each other through the darkness. In the wake of any large-scale tragedy, One of the most urgent and necessary responses is the pursuit of answers. When a plane carrying hundreds of innocent lives crashes, it is not enough to mourn, it becomes a moral obligation to investigate. The families who lost their loved ones in the Air India crash are not only grieving, they are waiting for clarity, waiting for justice, waiting to understand what went wrong and why their loved ones are no longer here. In the absence of answers, pain is compounded by confusion, and grief is weighed down by uncertainty. The call for accountability is not a demand rooted in anger, it is a cry born from love. People who had no control over what happened now seek the truth, not because it will bring their loved ones back, but because truth gives meaning to loss. If this tragedy was preventable, then someone must take responsibility. If there were errors, technical, human, or institutional, then they must be named and addressed, because if the causes are buried, the lessons will be too, and when lessons are buried, future lives are put at risk. The speech underlines a deep and resonant point. Transparency is a form of respect. Families deserve to know what happened. A full and honest investigation is not a bureaucratic task. It is a sacred duty owed to the victims and to those who continue to carry the weight of their absence. It sends a message that their lives mattered enough for the world to care, to probe, to question, and to learn. Anything less would dishonor their memory. Beyond personal healing, accountability has a collective purpose. Aviation safety, emergency response, air traffic protocols. These are not abstract systems. They are lifelines, and they must be scrutinized whenever they fail. When tragedy is met with silence or vague statements, it erodes public trust. But when it is met with transparency and responsibility, it builds a culture of safety, of progress, and of honor. The victims of the crash deserve to have their final moments understood. Their families deserve closure that only the truth can bring. And the world deserves to move forward, equipped with the knowledge needed to prevent such horrors from recurring. Accountability is not about assigning blame for the sake of punishment. It is about uncovering truth for the sake of change. Only by confronting what went wrong can we honor what was lost. And only through truth can we begin to rebuild what was shattered. In every tragedy, while many run from the chaos, there are always a few who run toward it. Those brave souls who step into the fire, into the wreckage, into the unthinkable. These are the first responders, the rescue workers, the doctors, the nurses, and the volunteers who show up not for recognition, but out of pure courage and humanity. In the aftermath of the Air India plane crash that claimed 270 lives, it is these individuals who brought light into one of the darkest moments. They worked tirelessly, often without sleep, in dangerous conditions, surrounded by scenes too painful for most of us to imagine. And they did it not for applause, but because someone had to. Their role goes beyond pulling bodies from the wreckage or stabilizing the injured. They carry the emotional weight of what they witness. They see families collapse in grief. They deliver impossible news. They move through devastation with trembling hands but unwavering resolve. In many ways, they become the bridge between life and death, between despair and dignity. Their work is not just physical, it is spiritual. It's about honoring life even when surrounded by death. These heroes often go unnamed and unnoticed. The news may mention their efforts briefly, but their sacrifices run deeper than a news cycle. They experience trauma that lingers long after the site is cleared and the world has moved on. Yet, they keep showing up, again and again, because that's what it means to serve, and for that, they deserve more than just a moment of gratitude. They deserve lasting respect and systemic support. Recognizing them is also essential to how we, as a society, respond to disaster. When we celebrate bravery, we encourage it. When we honor sacrifice, we build a culture where service is valued, not just expected. These individuals remind us of the best in humanity even when the worst has occurred. Their actions speak louder than words. They don't just save lives, they restore hope. They prove that in moments of crisis, goodness still rises, even from the ashes. Let us remember that behind every life recovered, behind every injured person stabilized, and behind every grieving family consoled, there is someone who made that moment of grace possible. These are the true warriors of compassion. And as we remember the victims, we must also remember those who stood in the fire to bring others out. In a world that often feels divided, Their selflessness unites us all in reverence and gratitude. Tragedy has a way of shaking us to our core, forcing us to confront how fragile and unpredictable life truly is. The Air India plane crash that claimed 270 lives is one such tragedy. It isn't just a moment of loss, it's a wake-up call. It reminds us that life is not promised, that every goodbye, every hug, every see you soon might unknowingly be the last. In the face of such heartbreak, we are forced to reflect on how we live, how we love, and what we prioritize. The lives lost in this crash speak silently, urging us to look around and recognize what truly matters. We often live as though we have all the time in the world. We hold grudges, postpone forgiveness, take relationships for granted, and get caught in routines that leave our hearts empty. But when something so devastating happens, it disrupts the illusion of control. It reminds us that time is not a guarantee, it's a gift. And if we're not using it to build connection, spread kindness, and truly live, then we're wasting something sacred. In the speech, there's a powerful call to cherish the present, to hug our loved ones tighter, to say what needs to be said, and to never leave things unsaid out of pride or fear. We are encouraged to live with intention, not just habit. Because the people on that plane didn't expect that their journey would be their last. They boarded with plans, with excitement, with hopes. Their lives ended without warning, and in that lies a message we must not ignore. This moment is not just about mourning the dead, it's about honoring them through how we choose to live. It's about allowing their memory to inspire deeper appreciation for our own lives. When we wake up tomorrow, we can choose to be a little more patient, a little more present, and a little more loving. We can choose to let go of what doesn't serve us and hold closer to what does. That is how we make their lives mean something beyond the tragedy. Ultimately, this kind of loss teaches us to stop waiting. Stop waiting to chase your passion, to tell someone you love them, to make peace, to take that risk, to live boldly. If this tragedy teaches us anything, it is that life is delicate, unpredictable, and deeply precious. And the best way to honor the lives that ended too soon is to live ours with purpose, with love, and with no regrets. Thank you.